What is up, my friends? Grab yourself a cup of coffee, pour yourself a glass of wine, glass of beer, I don't know, a V8, orange juice, apple juice, whatever floats your boat. We're going to be hanging out here for like 20 minutes or so as we go through this amazing Turbo Graphx 16 library. Let's check it out.
Boing-de-bop, flippity-flop.
I thought this would be a really cool video to make for those of you that may want to eventually get a Turbo Graphx 16 Mini one day, or for those of you that are just curious, you've never seen one before. This is a console that came out in the early 90s during the same era as the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. And here in North America, it didn't do as well as the Genesis and Super Nintendo did. From what I've heard in Japan, this was called the PC Engine, and it was really popular there. So with this mini console, it's fully HDMI hookup. I'm not going to go into too much details with this, but the back comes off, which is pretty cool. So you can neatly wire your HDMI cord and your micro USB power cable through the back. And in the front, you have two USB ports for your controllers. And this is it's a pretty cool replica. It looks exactly like the original Turbo Graphx 16, but a smaller, sleeker version of it. I almost knocked down my freaking coffee. So what's cool about this? What's cool about the library with this mini is that it has both a Turbo Graphx 16 library and a PC Engine library of games that were solely sold in Japan. So this is a really phenomenal list, and let's get started with this list, man. We're gonna check out every game briefly, of course, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. But before we start, let me show you the controller. You only get one controller, and it has this is an exact replica of the original Turbo Graphx 16 controller. It even has a turbo selector function. You can go auto fire or turbo fire, and full auto. Really cool. I never had one of these as a kid. And I was a lucky youngster. I had both a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis, but not a Turbo Graphx 16. Yeah, let's go through this amazing friggin' library. Now, I've only had a chance to play a couple of games, which was really cool about making this video. I got to try out every game finally. I've had this thing for a couple of months now. So let's just get started. Let's get right into this. I'm going to start off with the first game. The first game we're going to be checking out is a game called Military Madness. This is a really cool game. I've never heard of this game. Like I said, I didn't own a Turbo Graphx 16, but it reminds me of a game that I played on the NES, a turn-based game called Conflict. This is quite similar. Turn-based RTS, real-time strategy type game. I'm really looking forward to getting into this game because I like these type of games. And one of my favorite RTS games during the 16-bit era was a game called Star Control. Oh god, this thing was phenomenal. If you like turn-based strategy and you like shmups, this is the game for you. Definitely, if you still have your Genesis going, pick up Star Control. A true friggin' gem of a game. Next we have Moto Roder. Never heard of this one, but it reminds me, it's like a top-down racer. Kind of reminds me of a game I played on the NES called RC Pro-Am. At first, the controls kind of felt like prehistoric. Kind of reminded me of like an early Atari 2600 top-down racer, or like auto racing for the Intellivision. But as I got used to the controls and got to the finish line, I felt compelled to want to play more. Or even though it doesn't really look like much and sound like much, it's kind of cool once you get used to the controls. Now here is a game called Newtopia. Now, while playing this game briefly, it kind of reminds me of, like a Zelda clone. High quality, the sound effects, the graphics. I mean, this game looks beautiful. Action adventure, role-playing game. Something that I'm definitely going to want to try one day. Hope I have the time for it, because this is something I definitely want to try. Really cool. Damn, let me tell you, there's so many great games in this library. You're going to see as we get more deeper into this that one of the biggest challenges I'm going to have with this console is trying to figure out which game I want to play. It's going to be hard to focus on one game at a time when you have all these amazing freaking titles. They even throw in Newtopia Part 2, so I mean, I can't really tell you much about Part 2 yet because I haven't played Part 1, but hey, you get a complete set. The next game we're going to take a brief look at is one of my favorite games on the NES, and that is Adventure Island. This version is called New Adventure Island, and after playing through the first level, it kind of reminds me exactly of the original Adventure Island, but just with enhanced graphics and sound. And speaking of sound, I mean, the audio quality of this system is friggin' second to none. Exceedingly better than the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. Next, we have this game called Ninja Spirit. It kind of reminds me of Ninja Gaiden, Shinobi, Rastan, little side-scrolling slasher. But this game, I mean, just by playing it briefly, it seems to have its own unique feel to it. This is definitely, you know, in the same league as a arcade polished classic like Shinobi. Phenomenal game so far from what I've tried out. Here we have a game called Parasol Stars. It kind of reminds me of, you know, Bubble Bobble. It's made by Taito. And it says right here, the story of Bubble Bobble 3. So there's your hint right there. You know, maze style platformer. I mean, if you've played the original Bubble Bobble, that game was phenomenal. So this looks like it's along those lines. Hey, we get a sports title here for the Turbo Graphx 16 Mini called Power Golf. Now, there's not too many sports games in this compilation, but hey, we got some Power Golf. Now, the Turbo Graphx 16 was known for its shmups, the shoot 'em ups, and this library has an amazing variation of some phenomenal shmups, and some of them I've never played before. So this is the first one we're going to be talking about, Psychosis. Pretty cool. It looks like it's a side-scrolling shmup. Playing the first level, you can tell it's definitely going to be challenging. Cool power-ups so far, weapon upgrades, and yeah, I'm looking forward to trying this one out. I'm a big shmup fan, so this is going to be great. Here we have R-Type. I've played R-Type before on my Super NES. That was, I think, called Super R-Type. Here is the Turbo Graphx 16's R-Type. Excellent game. For those of you who've never heard of R-Type, you must be living under a damn rock. Or maybe you're just like under 20 years old. 25 maybe. That could be a cutoff. But yeah, R-Type, famous, popular shmup. Shmup Heaven. And here we have Soldier Blade. Guess what? Another shmup. Top-down shmup. Really cool. Here we have another fantastic shooter made by Sega. And we just talked about this in my last video. Space Harrier. Here's another popular one that I've never played before. And this is, you know, real popular on YouTube. I've seen a lot of creators make videos or do playthroughs with Splatterhouse. The side-scrolling action hack and slasher. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like, you know, Castlevania. And after playing it, I can get what all the hype is with this game. It's just a lot of fun, very satisfying. Next, we have this racing game called Victory Run. I'm kind of like meh. A little bit it reminds me of like Rad Racer. Some of these 16-bit racers, if I didn't grow up playing them, now playing them for the first time, you know, kind of bland. But I'm sure if I would have played this back when I was, you know, 14, 15 years old, you know, pretty badass. You drive a manual transmission, you know, racer, kind of like Rad Racer style, you know, arcade style. Here is a game that I really know nothing about, but I've heard that this game was very good. This is Wise Book 1 and 2. Looks to be like a, you know, JRPG. Here we have another shooter called Air Zonk. Now this looks to be, you know, this colorful, cartoony, you know, cutesy shooter, but it's no short on fun. It's really good from what I've played. Now, pinball fans get Alien Crush. I've never played Alien Crush, but I've seen a lot of people play it on YouTube. So now I have my own copy. But I mean, this game is solid, and I can only imagine playing this back when it came out. It's just friggin' phenomenal. Excellent. The physics, the sound effects, I mean, this game is just perfect. Here's another shooter called Blazing Lasers. Now, Bomberman 93, here she is. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never, well, I'm always freaking honest, so I don't know why I'm saying that. But yeah, Bomberman 93, I've never played a single Bomberman game before in my life. I played a game called Mighty Bomb Jack, but this game, you know, I've heard of Bomb Jack, I've seen people play it, but I definitely want to give it another shot. And they give you a couple other Bomberman games too, which we're going to get into really briefly. Here we have Bonk's Revenge. Now, the Turbo Graphx 16 Mini featured Bonk. Like, it was kind of like the Turbo Graphx 16's mascot. Nintendo had Mario, Sega had Sonic, Turbo Graphx 16 had Bonk. Here we have an interesting game called Kadash. Looks like a, you know, a side-scrolling hack and slasher. You have 4 characters you can choose from. Pretty cool so far from what I've played, but you know, I haven't gotten too deep into it. The game definitely got my attention, and I'm looking forward to trying it out again. Here we have a game called Chuman Fu. I'm assuming Chuman Fu, but it's like this little puzzle game. I figured out that you have to take those little balls and roll them to the square color boxes, while avoiding like these porcupine creatures. And you can take out the porcupine creatures by kicking the balls at them. And I didn't get very far so far. Here's a Dungeons and Dragons type game called Dungeon Explorer. Type of a role-playing game. You can choose to be like a warrior, a thief, magician. Here's a game called JJ and Jeff. From my brief playing experience, it's a slippery, fast-paced action platformer. Slippery meaning the controls are real slippery, but the graphics, the colors, the sprites, I mean, they look beautiful. The music. I'll be giving this game another go someday. Here we have another eye-catching shooter called Lords of Thunder. Definitely want to be giving this one another go. Okay, so that concludes the Turbo Graphx 16 library. Now we're going to be getting into the imported Japanese PC Engine games that are included with this console. So starting off, the first one we're going to get into is Fantasy Zone. Another Sega arcade hit you'll get a copy of. How could you go wrong with this beautiful, colorful shooter? Now here we have the souped up version of a classic shooter called Galaga. This one is called Galaga 88. Now here's a Japanese shooter that I'm going to have a tough time pronouncing, but I'm going to give it a shot. Ginga Fuki Densetsu Sapphire. I think I got that pretty good. Here we have the Konami gem called Gradius. Gradius. I think it's called Gradius. That's how I used to pronounce it. Kind of reminds me of, you know, like Life Force, Salamander. In other countries they call it. They even give you another Gradius game, Gradius Gopher. But to save some time on this video, and we'll keep it brief here. And here's a game called Necromancer, but unfortunately this game is all in Japanese text, so I had a really tough time trying to navigate through the main menus. So I couldn't get really far through this game. You need to be able to understand Japanese to play this one. So this might be like a, you know, a title that you may not be able to enjoy. Necromancer. I think I'm turning Japanese. I really think so. You even get a Japanese version of Military Madness, which they call here Nectaris. Here is another double that they give you, a Japanese version of Newtopia. They also give you a Japanese version of Newtopia 2. And this game called Ninja Ryukenden. To my surprise, upon playing this game, get a 16-bit version of Ninja Gaiden. Here we have PC Genjin, which appears to be the Japanese version of Bonk. And then moving on, you'll see Salamander, which is like the Japanese version of Life Force here in the United States. And then moving on to a game I'm going to have a tough time pronouncing, Serie Senshi Spriggan. Spriggan is just another super colorful, eye-popping shooter. Here we have a game called Snatcher, Cyberpunk adventure. And this was a game that was unplayable for me. But yeah, I couldn't play this one. It's all in Japanese. Here is Spriggan Mark II. Here we have Star Parodia. Here we have Super Darius. I played Darius on the Super Nintendo. I have Darius Twin, which is pretty cool. You know, the ship looks identical. Now here we have a game that's another tongue twister from my English-speaking tongue. Super Momotaro Den Tatsu Part 2. This was a game that I couldn't play. Another game that's unplayable if you don't understand Japanese. All the text is in Japanese, so yeah, it didn't take long before I was frustrated and decided to move on. Here we have Superstar Soldier, another shmup. Surprise, surprise. Here we have a game called the Genji and the Heike Clans. I haven't gotten very deep into this game, but it seems very difficult, man. Without a doubt. Now this was the very first game I clicked on when I had hooked up my Turbo Graphx 16, and this is called The Kung Fu, and it totally reminds me of one of my favorite games to play on the NES when I was a kid. That was, you know, the NES version of Kung Fu, but this just looks like Kung Fu on steroids. You know, the graphics are improved. Here we have the Legend of Valkyrie. This game is pretty awesome, man, from what I played. Now they give you the Japanese versions of Wise Book 1 and 2, so I'm not going to really get into that. And scrolling on to the next game. This is a game that I found out on my Nintendo Wii when I purchased this in the Wii shop. But this is basically a Castlevania game, a Japanese Castlevania game. It's made by Konami. This is one of the best Castlevania games I've ever played. It's right up there with Bloodlines. Excellent. Next we have a game that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Well, maybe I should, just for shits and giggles. Aldiniz? Aldiniz? Aldiniz. I don't know. I guess this is as good as mine. Another quality shooter. Now here we have another game that's entirely in Japanese, some kind of Japanese sports game that I really can't figure out. It's all in Japanese. It involves taking a hammer and hitting a ball between like two posts. I don't know what you call this. I'm sure somebody can help me out in the comment section if you know what this is called. Here we have Bomberman 94. And they even give you another Bomberman game. The gameplay is kind of like, you know, color matching, you know, puzzler. Matching 3 of a kind. Looks like you'll go up against, you know, someone else. Probably 2 players, obviously. But yeah, this looks pretty cool. And the game's called Bomberman Panic Bomber. So you get a Bomberman 94, Bomberman Panic Bomber. Cho Aniki. I remember playing this game, the first time playing it, I just couldn't put this game down. I played this game for like 2 or 3. I only just wanted to sample the game and just wound up playing this thing for like 2 hours straight. Totally pulled me right in with its weirdness, its kookiness. very fast paced, a lot of stage bosses. Like you'll be going through a stage boss like every couple minutes. Really cool. Very challenging too. So we only have a few more games left to talk about here, and this game is called Damakuramura. Didn't know what the hell this was. Not really noticing the cover art, and as soon as I fired it up, I'm like, ooh, I got myself a Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and Ghosts, game. Everyone's heard of this game. Come on now, everyone's heard of this one. Now moving on to the second to last game of this amazing list, and we're talking about here, Dragon Spirit. Now this is the last shmup we're going to talk about, but definitely not the least. Really cool. It seems like it's a shooter based in the prehistoric era. And the last game on the PC Engine list is Dungeon Explorer, which is also a double. So yeah, I mean, I love this little console. The on-screen menus are fantastic. You can change, your picture format. You can even add CRT lines to the picture. Save, any game. You can hop on there and play for 10 minutes, save it, shut it off, and then come back later. Pick up right where you left off. Really cool. The settings. This has a phenomenal menu. One of the best mini interfaces that I've experienced. And I highly recommend this little console if you could pick it up one day when it's available, or if I think right now there's a demand for these. So yeah, one day when they go on sale, or when it becomes more mainstream and you can pick one up in the store, definitely this is something you may want to get. So I appreciate you all for hanging out with me for the duration of this video. I'm gonna be trying to stay on like a schedule for my YouTube channel, meaning every Monday at 12 p.m. noon Eastern, I'll have a video every Monday, and then we'll do a live stream every Wednesday night. And then, randomly during the week, if I have the time, or, some interesting news that I feel like that's time sensitive and I need to get it out there for my audience, I'll make videos, here and there. But I definitely want to stick to the Monday and Wednesday thing. And, yeah, I appreciate you guys all for hanging out with me for this video. Next Monday, I'm going to have a pickups video. That's not something I really do on this channel. My summer pickups, I got a lot of cool games, Nintendo games, Super Nintendo games, Genesis, PS4, PS3, PS2. I went on a friggin' summer spree. And that's gonna be the next video for next week. So I'll see you guys next time, or Wednesday night for my next stream. You take care, everyone, and thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments section below. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace!